Hello, everybody. My name is Joshua. I'm the founder and director of El Terreno Cultural Exchange Center out here in the Ecuadorian Andes. It's that time of year again when we are doing many final presentations based on the work that people have been doing throughout the season. And this one is one of the ones that I'm most excited about because we are going into an area that we haven't addressed, but it's been on top of mind for a number of years, which is about water quality and nutrition. Because as you will find out, there's very high rates of malnutrition, particularly among the children here in this region. And, at the beginning of their life, has big impacts for them, both in terms of their physical health, but also their cognitive development, and therefore their future economic prospects, which, is a big contribution towards the large rates of migration that we see here in this region. And we've got a great team made up of people from many different disciplines and levels of experience, and they've been working together and developed something really interesting that I hope has got legacy for many months and years to come. So I'm not sure who is going to kick us off, but I will pass over to you and feel free to make a quick introduction and start with your presentation. Over to you.
So yeah, my name's Yasmin. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm originally from the US, but right now I'm an undergraduate student in international studies in Spain. And I initially came to El Terreno to take part in meaningful work and try to make a positive impact in the local community as best as I could. Next slide, please.
Sorry, that's the introductory.
Hi, I'm Yuval. No.
We had some technical problems, so we're all from the same computer. But I'm Yuval. I'm intended pre-med in the US for next year. And I came here to gain real life experience and hopefully get some opportunities to the local people, especially the children, better opportunities to develop the medical field here. But yeah.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm from France and I'm currently going to my last year of apprentice engineering studies at Insta in France. And I came here to be able on an internship and with the goal of helping the community and interacting with a new culture, making an impact.
Hi, I'm Daniel. I am German. I'm a father of a 7-year-old son, and I have a PhD in chemistry. And I came here to support the communities in need with my technical skills, and I wish to make a difference.
My name is Florian. I'm from Germany. I have a master's degree in management and sociology, and I love food. And apart from that, by coming here, I'm working for a good cause and I'm hoping to make an impact. Daniel, do you have to say something about the agenda?
Okay, so the agenda for today is we talk a bit about nutritional and kitchen habits in the rural communities in Ecuador. Then it's going to be followed by medical checks and concerns. Then we are going to tell you something about water quality in Atandahua. And last but not least, we want to tell you something about the water safety plan that we envision for this community.
Okay, and I think it's...
Yeah, I'll be taking over. Okay. So yeah, this first part's going to be, like I mentioned, about the nutritional and kitchen habits in rural communities, because at one point this is where the project kind of diverged from. So next slide, please. So I came initially to work on the water quality project, and Daniel and I spent the first few weeks of the project doing field research, mostly focused on water quality and its impact on the health of different age groups. But when my mentor, Sebastian, and I went into the local nursery and asked about the water filtration system, as well as the health information of the children, we were honestly shocked to find such high rates of not just malnourishment, but chronic malnourishment. And so given that kids are such a vulnerable and a high affected group, we decided that this would be one of the target audiences that we focus on and one of the problems that we would address. So then Sophia came, and together with her, we researched further into our target group, which is actually in the next slide. We looked at statistics of prevailing illnesses of kids age 1 to 3 from the San Juan Medical Center, as well as rates of chronic malnourishment in 3 local nurseries. So as you can see, one of the nurseries had rates as high as 80%, and then the other 2 had around 50%. And with the illnesses, the most common illness, at least in January, was the common cold, which is probably viral. But then we also see internal parasites, really high rates of internal parasites, which could be due to contaminated water, and then anemia, which is likely due to malnourishment. Next slide, please. So yeah, with this information and statistics, we decided to create an ideation workshop and invite the nursery caretakers to present them these statistics and brainstorm with them possible solutions that we could implement to address the problem. And so what we mainly took away or learned from this workshop was that the most likely reason that these kids are chronically malnourished is because of low food and or water quality at home, either because the mothers do not know how to properly nourish their child, or because they don't have enough time, or because they aren't at home a lot of the time and the siblings are left to take care of their younger siblings. So towards the end of the workshop, we used the impact difficulty matrix graph. And so from that, we zoned in on the lowest difficulty but highest impact solution, which for us was creating a food nutrition workshops for the mothers of the nurseries. But in order to implement this solution, we wanted to first create a pilot workshop. So we did this with, and this is in the next slide, please. We created a pilot workshop with the caretakers from the nurseries in collaboration with nutritionists, which was very successful and delicious too. But yeah, so the later steps that we would implement to continue the solution would then be taken over with the future interns, which is what Yuval and Emma did. And so that was basically the first 6 weeks of the whole project. And yeah, so I'll pass over now to Yuval and Emma to take over.
After Yasmin left, we tried to extend the workshops to not only the nursery caretakers, but also the moms, because they are the first responsible for their children's nutrition. So we visited the nurseries and extended our visits to the homes to directly get into contact with the moms and to get them to convince them to come to the future workshops. So that's what we've done, and tomorrow there will be another cooking workshop with moms only, and not nursery caretakers. So that's and so after that we intend to keep doing the workshops and extend them to other communities, because now we targeted at Andawa and San Juan mainly, and have them come more regularly, because it's not only one workshop, one cooking workshop, but a series of several workshops that have to be done to make change in the communities.
So yeah, like Emma said, we really tried to narrow down the information Yasmin and Sophia have gathered before us. And what we figured out mostly is that the main problem, I think the nursery workers kind of know that they need to boil the water and all that, but then, so we figured out a lot of the malnutrition probably comes from the home. And alongside that, when we tried to gather more information and more data, medical data about the kids, we figured out that the local health center deletes a lot of the information, and the notebooks in the nursery, are not very organized. So yeah, we made, along with a local doctor, a book that really gathers all the information and will be staying in the nursery, and it will keep it more organized for future data gathering and just to compare if, for example, the workshops are working and actually affecting the community. Along with that, Emma and I have been working on a group from the US that are nursing students to come here and help. They came for a week and they did medical checks in the homes. They did brigades in the communities, and they came to the nurseries to gather, again, more information about the kids. And our goal is to bring them again yearly. For future work, for future interns, which I think Toby is going to be more responsible for, to move it on, is encouraging monthly check-ins, because from what we understood from the health centers and from the doctors, it should be monthly. But in some nurseries, it's once a month, what some is like every 2 months, and some it's only like twice or once a year. So we really want to encourage it to actually be once a month, to again, like, have medical information about the kids, to see if the workshops are working and really their situation.
Right, thank you, Yuval. So I will take over, and one of the outcomes also of our ideation workshop was that the water quality in Atandawa might be one of the sources of malnutrition, especially in children, and illnesses also in other people. So what we found out from the statistics on the diseases from the Subcentro de Salud de San Juan, we found out that illnesses that are potentially related to water quality are intestinal parasitosis, diarrhea, gastroenteritis, and others. And especially those named illnesses are one of the causes of malnutrition in children, amongst the already mentioned nutritional and hygiene habits. So we had a look into that, and I want to first show you a little bit about where the water system, or where the water of Atandawa actually comes from. So here you can see a mapping that we did, GPS mapping of the water system. The water system itself is about 7 kilometers long. Of this, about 6 kilometers in tubes. And the surface water is captured in the mountains around Atandawa. So the surface water is captured here. Here you can see, like, the water comes out from underground aquifers and is leaving the underground and caught in those ponds. Furthermore, there are wetlands after that, where the water infiltrates the ground and goes back into underground aquifers. So it alternates between surface water and underground aquifers. Then here at this position, it starts to become tubed. So here is a capture. After this capture, the water is tubed in those PVC tubes. And at the end of the tubing, it's caught in the main tank that after that supplies the households in Atandawa. Here in the main tank, also disinfection takes place, which deactivates bacteria, but it does not deactivate parasites. So what are the potential contaminants that we have identified? There is cattle breeding around the area where the water comes from. So sheep is a potential source for bacteria and parasites. Then we have found pesticide packages right next to the water ponds. So pesticides that are being used in the crop plantations around the water sources. Pesticides are a potential contamination source. And potentially we might have heavy metals in the water. which come from natural sources like minerals, where the water infiltrates, things like that. So to know better what we are dealing with, we performed a water analysis together with the Universidad Estatal de Bolívar here in Guaranda. And what we actually detected was 2 types of parasites in the water. We found Giardia lamblia and Entamoeba coli, which cause gastrointestinal diseases. Or can cause gastrointestinal diseases, especially when there is malnourishment, especially in children. What we have not detected or have detected below the limit, the law limit, was fecal coliform bacteria like E. coli, for example, that might stem from cattle. And we have found very little amount of heavy metals. So the heavy metals are not our biggest concern at the moment. The fecal coliform bacteria, why we haven't found them was because we took the water sample during the dry season where there is no rain. Rain normally infiltrates the manure from the cattle and then takes the parasites and bacteria into the water. So as it hasn't rained before we took the water samples for several days, there was no infiltration, and bacteria die relatively quickly without a host. Parasites are more resistant. That's why we find them for a longer time in the water. What we have not found is pesticides. Why haven't we found them? Because we don't have an established method at the university to find or to look for pesticides in trace amounts in the water. So this is something that we haven't tested for. So we actually focused our efforts on the parasites and bacteria for now. So to potentially clean the water, what is the requirements that a water filter needs to fulfill? It needs to remove sediments that potentially can carry bacteria, parasites, and heavy metals attached to the sediments. It needs to remove free-floating bacteria and parasites from the water that are not attached to sediments. And it needs to remove dissolved traces of pesticides. And it has to generate a sufficient amount of water for minimum 1 day. For the nursery, for example, sufficient amount of water would mean minimum 50 liters because they use like 50 liters per day. So we came up with a first water filter prototype. That was the idea. I don't want to go too much into detail. There are 3 sections that we have. There is a sedimentation barrel to sediment the really heavy stuff in the first place. Then we transfer the water to a filtration barrel, which is a sand filtration barrel. It has several layers of sands. It has charcoal on the bottom, which is supposed to attach organic substances like dissolved pesticides in the water. And then it gets transformed into a 0.1 micrometer filter, which filters bacteria and parasites. And the clean water is then transferred into a storage barrel. So to cover the costs for the materials of this project, we initiated a fundraising campaign with the following goals. So basically we had an essential goal, which served for 1 water filter at the nursery of Atandawa. We had an ideal goal that we wanted to reach, which was 3 filters for Atandawa, San Juan, and Cochabamba for the 3 nurseries. And we had a stretch goal, so all of the above, the 3 nurseries, and we wanted to implement 1 water filter each for the school in San Juan and in Cochabamba. So thanks to a lot of amazing people that donated, we reached our stretch goal. We raised $1,500. And a big thank you to everybody that donated and took part in this great project. I'm very grateful for that. And so we could realize actually the first water filter in the nursery of Atandawa. So here we have the sedimentation barrel. Here you can see the filtration barrel. Here you can see the 0.1 micrometer filter system and the storage barrel. So I will go a bit more into detail, not too much. So the sedimentation barrel basically has an automatic balloon valve that closes once the sedimentation barrel is full. The sand filtration barrel looks like this. We have stones at the bottom, we have gravel on top. Then comes the charcoal. I don't have a photo of the charcoal. And then we have a bag with sand in the different layers, in different particle sizes. And this is the finished barrel already in action. So the 0.1 micrometer filter is a Sophia filter where the water comes through. It basically is just a simple filtration system. All the red dots here represent the bacteria and parasites. They get stuck in the filter, and the permeate, which is the water and dissolved salts, permeates the filter. So here I have a small video. I don't know if we can see it properly. So yeah, there's the water coming through. The water is filtered through the Sophia filter, and we have quite a good water flow, which then ends up in the storage barrel. And it was, yeah, quite successful. So next slide. Hello. Yeah. So so what did it actually cost? I don't want to go into detail. This is all the detailed costs we have bought the materials from. It sums up to $184 roundabout. So what we anticipated was $197. The costs that are not included in this calculation are costs for going into Guaranda, coming back, buying the material. Like the transport cost is not included. So roundabout, it fits with what we have anticipated for the water filter. So what is the outlook? We want to observe the technical properties and the performance of the prototype. We want to see the clogging of the filter membranes, how often we need to maintain the filter to declog it. We want to next buy the materials for the water filters for the nurseries and schools in San Juan and Cochabamba, and want to assemble the filters. We want to also estimate the potential for extending the concept to other communities around the area. And we want to establish a pesticide trace analysis at the UEB laboratory. Okay, I will hand over to Florian.
Hello. So, next to helping Daniel on the water filter, I was concerned with a document that is called a water safety plan. In this case, for the community of Atandawa. This is all going along with some guidelines from the World Health Organization, which get proposals on how to manage a water supply for a small community. So basically, a water safety plan is a document that contains, like, I don't know, information about the water system and how to manage risks, like understanding these threats that can, like, contaminate the water with probably like bacteria, like Daniel was talking before. And yeah, you're prioritizing them, and afterwards you're like assessing like what poses the most threat to the water system, and according action is following. It also includes an incremental improvement plan, and well, this is for, like, I don't know, you're starting with very slow or little changes and growing bigger over time, which is reducing waterborne diseases and therefore like also enhancing public health or improving public health. What is very much key of this water safety plan is to engage the community so they can take ownership of this document and also come up with their own solutions. On the right-hand side, you can see the different chapters of a water safety plan for small communities. That is starting with the formation of a water safety planning team. These people who are in this team should be like, I don't know, probably technical experts on water supply systems or have influence within the community, so they can motivate people to join in, to share their knowledge about the water system and also to participate in solution finding. The next step would be describing the water supply system. Oh, no, sorry, I have to go back. Describing the water supply system, which is very much a technical part of this document. What Daniel mentioned before, it contains all the water sources of the surrounding land of Atendawa, and also like how this water flows down the mountain and comes to the main tank, where it is treated with in a chlorination process and then also distributed to the homes. And well, all of this information needs to be documented, written down, and so it's centralized in this water safety plan. What comes next is an identification of hazards, like the threats that I mentioned before, should be like prioritized in the list. Like, what do we have to tackle first to make big impacts with like little resources, or like the resources that we have, the people that can contribute into this, and also like to form some measurements that we need for the next step. That's the incremental improvement plan. There, these measurements lead to like a list of incremental improvements that have a time frame. For example, like, I don't know, we want to achieve this and that target by, I don't know, the middle of next year. And also a budget and the people from the water safety planning team that are involved. As a step 5, there is monitoring and controlling these measures. On the one hand, it's operational controlling, like on a daily basis, checking probably the main tank, if it's maintained correctly, if the piping system is not leaking. And on the other hand, there's verification monitoring, where we try to assess if we're meeting the water quality targets that we set up in the water safety plan. And for the last step, well, we document everything that we do. We review it, and then we try to find space for improvement or also blind spots, which leads to an iterational process or a loop somehow, that you go back to the start and do it all over again. And the beautiful thing about that is that you're getting faster because you've done it before. And also, like, the water safety plan does not have to be a perfect document or somewhat near perfect, because it's developing over time into a perfect solution for the problems at hand in Atendawa. So when I started this endeavor, the water safety plan was somewhat of a skeleton. And I started with the technical side of this part, of this document with Daniel, and I put in all the information on the system, like mapping the water sources. There's Google Earth documents with little pins on it, like Daniel showed before, and they contain more information about the water source and some pictures. We documented the infrastructure and the chlorination process into very detail. And then I started to document or like map the homes of the people that are living in Atendawa and how they cultivate the land, like what crops they grow, what cattle they raise, just to have all this information there. That's the one side of this system description, but then I reviewed it with Sebastian, my mentor, and we came to the conclusion that this is just some technical side of the problem that we have here, and it needs much more elaboration on the social side, like how to engage the community, how to convince the farm owners that we're doing a good thing with this document, and like how to get them engaged in the process. And also including like a cultural perspective, because the people here are like indigenous people, somewhat the Quechua, who have like other perspectives on water than probably Western people have, or also like the people in Lower Atendawa have. So that's the point where I go over to, sorry, there was some talking in the background. Well, I started to review the whole document and came up with a very detailed first step, which now is concerned with government and stakeholder mapping, And in this first step, I also suggest some internships that can be done in the future with a starting point at stakeholder mapping and identification, where the objective is like to identify, document, and categorize all potential water safety plan stakeholders across technical, cultural, and governance spheres. Like, yeah, we want to create a database with dense information about all the stakeholders that are around this area, like the community, but also like the government, like the Prefectura de Bolivar, but also a little scale bigger to include NGOs or international organizations who could be interested in this endeavor. And then we start to categorize their roles into more detail to assess in an influence and interest matrix who could be the best initial water safety planning team to start this process. And also like then this concludes in a stakeholder map. Well, what we think this process will like bring us to is somewhat that the community takes ownership of this document without us being in a paternalistic position. We want to make passive receivers of technology into active contributors, like sharing their wisdom, sharing their knowledge, sharing their solutions or proposing solutions. And we want to create a community that doesn't feel powerless, but with our background work transforms into an informed community that can take sophisticated decisions. And well, in even a bigger scale, change the malnourishment situation at the nursery into like a well-being situation where children can take in all the nutrients that they get from food, and also thereby fighting a root cause for poverty in the region, which is water quality, to create a more better, vibrant surrounding and environment. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for all of the work that you've put into this presentation. It's a lot of information that you've crammed into half an hour. And so just to summarize one more time, like all of the work that's taken place with many people participating over the last few months. We've worked, first of all, doing the research. So particularly Yasmin and Daniel right at the beginning, doing the water tests in collaboration with the local universities, doing the ideation workshops and speaking to the local stakeholders. And then from there, the birth of different directions that this project has gone down. So we've obviously heard about the nutrition and looking at the issues that the local children in the nursery face, not just them being at the nursery, but at home, which is a whole nother group of people identifying the mothers and identifying where the root causes are. The medical brigades linking with the University of Missouri and architecting, curating what we did a lot of that week, where we had 8 nurses from the United States come and participate for a week in those medical brigades. That was lent a lot towards the malnutrition issues, going to the nurseries and also going to the schools and taking height and weight and stuff from the kids to continue to get the information that's necessary. Working on the water safety plan and the water filters. And so this is all kind of part of our process of how we work, linked to the idea of paternalism that Florian was just talking about, not coming in with preconceived ideas of how things need to work. We've been working a lot over the last few years on water security in terms of reforestry. We've planted about 20,000 trees over the last couple of years, which we're going to continue to do every wet season. But during this time, which is the dry season, it's really important that we can focus on water quality, which is another vital aspect related to not only health and well-being, but as was said, also sustainable development and other kind of critical issues that lead towards migration. So I want to give you a massive round of applause to all of you guys for all of the hard work that's gone in, all of the collaboration that you guys have put together. It's a massive achievement. And, you know, a lot of this has started from zero, right? We knew a little bit about the water systems, but we haven't known a lot about nutrition. And so the work that you guys have done has really set things in good stead. And as was mentioned, you know, this is definitely not the end. This is just the beginning and how we'll be moving forwards. So Florian's idea of a stakeholder mapping process is something that we're going to be continuing with. We've got Toby on the call, who's an intern who's just arrived a couple of weeks ago, who's going to be taking that forward, developing the water safety plan and also building an action plan towards the planting season taking place in January. So a very complex situation, very complex issues, but it's all coming together in a really beautiful way. So just want to thank you for all of that. We're going to move into an opportunity for questions and answers. So if anyone's got a question, we'd love it if you could raise your hand so I can call you out, and then you can also put any questions or answers in or comments in the chat as well. So I'm going to start off with one question and then I'll pass over to some other people. So question first for Yasmin and Daniel. Can you explain a little bit more about how you identified working for the nurseries? How did you know that they were the people that needed your support?
I can start off, I guess. Well, I think the way that we identified it when Sebastian and I went into the nursery in Atandawa, and we talked to the coordinator of the nursery, he mentioned that the water that they receive is like very turbid. It comes in black some days. And so we noticed that obviously they need a water filtration system. They didn't even have a tank for their nursery. And so that obviously leads to a lot of illnesses that the kids face. And then the other side of it is we don't know how they're nourished at home. So we kind of wanted to like investigate what kind of steps we could take in order to address that problem, you know, with the mothers, because they have good nutrition at the schools in general, but in terms of the nutrition that they receive at home, you know, when they're at home on the weekend, we don't know how good that is. So that was a whole nother kind of sector that we wanted to investigate too. I don't know if Daniel has anything else to add.
Very complete and very beautifully explained, Yasmin. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a question from Sebastian, your mentor. In a personal statement, what is the key next step to continue harmonizing the link and relationship with water around local dynamics? Who'd like to answer that one? I'll repeat it once more. In a personal statement, so speaking from your position, what is the next key step to continue harmonizing the link and relationship with water around local dynamics? So I think this is leaning towards more the how we engage the community, both in their understanding and their engagement and participation in the project, given the context that we're in.
I can say of my perspective of things, I think the most important next step is, first of all, to pass on, because it's a different situation, because none of us is going to be here when the other interns are here. So I think it's mainly Toby's job. And I don't know if you can still hear me, but
we can still hear you, yeah.
Okay, so Toby's job, and maybe even Joshua and us as well, to live the legacy, to really continue with the next interns. I think from at least my perspective, it's the workshops that are very important, and to compare data from before to now. From now to after the workshop. Sorry, that's very
For sure, yes, it's okay. We can hear you. We can hear you. So yeah, I would agree with that. I think you were mentioning the book. So the way of doing monitoring and evaluation of the success of the project is going to be really important. And again, that's going to be one of the tasks that Toby's going to take on. linking with the health center to do what they call the controls, going in on a regular basis to the nurseries to see how these projects have make an impact. And even this presentation itself is an important legacy piece so that people can watch this video again in future and get an understanding of where this project began. Looking back in 3 or 4 years' time, people will be able to see the faces who've made this project possible. Florian, have you got something you'd like to add?
Daniel does, but well, probably after Daniel.
Okay. Yeah, I actually have something to add. So for passing on the information to the next interns to come, the water safety plan is a very nice tool to do that because it contains all the information that we gathered over time. It also gives an outlook on what we are planning to do to incrementally improve the situation. Also, the water safety plan acts as a communication tool to communicate with the community, to communicate with local authorities. So for that, the water safety plan is a very complete tool to do this and to condense the information that we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know where to find the chat. Is it like, because the question is pretty complex. Oh, there it is, the chat. Okay. For everyone, in a personal statement, what is the next key step to continue harmonizing the link and relationship with water around local dynamics? I think from my from my perspective, the next key step is probably Toby's work on the stakeholder mapping and identifying like probably key roles that are around in the Atandawa community, which Sebastian also mentioned is probably Ivan, Francisco, because they took a step forward in the last meeting of the Juntas de Agua and took ownership or took responsibility. So identifying these people is probably the next key step, and like talk this through with these people and try to set up a strategy how to engage the community.
Absolutely agree. What you guys have achieved over the last 12 weeks has been using the design thinking methodology that we use, has been doing the research, identifying the problem, proposing solutions, and eventually testing and validating those solutions. And I think you've got to that point where you validated many different solutions. We obviously need to keep checking up regarding the water quality that comes out of the filter and the participation in the workshops. I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but the test workshops that we've been doing in the community around nutrition, from September, we're now going to be delivering 8 workshops consecutively with the mothers from the nurseries, which will also at the end, not only will they get educated, but they will also receive a certificate, which potentially could help them to go towards getting employment in a restaurant or something like that as well in future. So we're now moving into the next stage, which involves a lot more stakeholder management and more of a strategic approach. And it's really exciting to be at this stage of what's been achieved in a very short period of time. Okay, we've got another question here from GRP. This is saying, this is amazing work. The nurseries are clearly on board. Do parents understand the importance of cleaner water?
I think that's for us. I think we are trying to really show them. Right now, I think from what we experience and walking around, actually like visiting the homes, they don't completely understand. I think the workers in the nurseries understand, and they take care of it as best as they can with their resources that they have. But I think the workshop is mainly to make them understand how important it is, and teach them how to actually do it correctly. So I think right now that's why convincing them kind of to come to the workshop in the first place was a bit difficult, because a lot of them don't completely understand the value of boiling water and making like correct nutrition for the kids and how it affects their growth. But yeah, like Joshua told us at the beginning, when they did, I wasn't here, but when they asked kids, for example, questions about the water, they said, how do you know the water is not good? Because it smells funny. So they are not really even aware of the parasites and bacteria and that kind of thing. So I think that's why the workshop is so important.
And again, this speaks to the complexity that exists here. So first of all, a lot of people don't actually know why they get sick or what these stomach issues are about. Then a lot of the time, there's a lot of people who just suffer in silence. And because the health centers, some of the communities are 2 hours walk away from the health center, which is supposed to serve them, they often don't get the healthcare. And again, that was one of the purposes of the brigades, which meant we went into the communities and we gave them support directly where it's needed. And so the socialization and the education is a really important aspect. But I think what's interesting and what gives me a lot of hope is that the first workshop that we ran, which was with the educators and some of them educators from the nurseries and some of the mothers, we had about 25 participants in that first workshop. And I'm looking very much forward to the workshop that's going to be running tomorrow, because from this experience and other things that we've done related to this, there's a lot of interest in cooking in general, and it's accessing a target demographic, so mothers who are often underrepresented and under-supported in many ways, and it's providing them not only the education but also information about cooking and nutrition and stuff like that, which I think is going to be very well received. So I think altogether it's a fantastic collaboration. Okay, Ellie, you've got a question. Would you be willing to open your mic and share this with us?
Of course. Let me just actually find the question that I wrote. So what do you think will be the biggest challenge with getting the community on board, with continuing with the water safety plan? Do you think there'll be any resistance from them?
I think that I can answer that. So I guess the biggest challenge to getting the community on board is, I don't know, probably the linking of technical solutions to a problem with indigenous or traditional views of water and the system. I talked a lot about that with Sebastian, and I think what he mentioned was like these water sources, they call them like baby water. Like, I don't know the Quechua word for that. And I don't know, it's some other view on water that they have. And I don't know, convincing them that a technical solution can help them to improve on the water system or the water quality is probably the biggest challenge. And probably they will resist if you come in there with like the solution can be as good as it is, like, or it can be the best solution to the problem. If you don't get the backup from the community, you cannot implement it, because they will just say like, I don't care about that. So yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Florian. We've got a question from Nina. Would you be able to unmute yourself and ask it for us?
Yes. First of all, congratulations to everyone. As Josh has pointed out, this is a really complex issue, and I'm really impressed how it's been addressed not only very strategically, but very holistically, by involving the community and also involving the nurseries and then the moms, and how it's just going to continue with the workshops and the water safety plan. My question, I guess, pretty not very complex, very simple. I'm just really curious whether the nutrition or the malnutrition that we see with kids in the community, is it due to financial constraints where the moms don't have access to nutritious food, or was it more because they do have access to nutritious food, but they needed more knowledge around how to provide well-balanced meals? Yeah, just curious to know if there's also other challenges, financial challenges for the families.
Yeah, I think I can answer this question. It's definitely a two-way problem. So there is first the educational issue, that they know about the nutritional values of the food, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, what is important, what is actually a balanced diet. But there is definitely a low-income rural community that we are talking about, and there is definitely also financial constraints. So it's important to find a good balance between nutritious food, and that doesn't necessarily have to be very expensive. Like to find an economical way, but for a balanced diet.
I do have something else to add to this question. I remember what we did find out too that was really interesting is that a lot of these families, because they're agricultural based, they have access to basically all the food groups that you need to create nutritious meals. But what happens a lot of the time is that they sell most of their produce, and in exchange for that, they buy cheaper but like mostly carbohydrate based food, and that's what they feed to their kids. So it's like they sell their higher quality food in exchange to buy a larger quantity of lower quality food that then that's what they mostly eat. So I think that has a lot to do with, you know, just educating them and saying that no, you have to put yourself and your family first, in terms of how you're providing the right nutrition for your family, and then after you should, you know, sell the rest of your food. And I would assume that they would definitely still have a lot to sell because, you know, they do produce a lot. But what happens is that they don't realize that, you know, they have to eat the high quality food that they produce instead of buying it for lower in exchange for lower quality food. Yeah.
Thank you. Then Uli and Krista, we have a question.
Yes, so I guess the ownership of the filter systems is going to the people who use them. So, and how about the responsibility to maintain and or repair or get spare parts or whatsoever? What are the plans there? Is this already done, or how will this work? Or and also they will probably need also money to maintain this filter system. So will this also be funded then by your
So yeah, I can answer this. We definitely want to do a handover of the water filter to the nursery, to the head of the nursery, to explain in detail how the filter system works and what to do. Like do the check on the sedimentation barrel. If there is sediments, they can clean it very easily. We also want to educate them how to clean the filter, like the 0.1 micrometer filter when it's clogged. So it has to be maintained like once a day, maybe once every 2 days. It has to be declogged, but we have implemented a declogging system, which is working very well and is very easy to do. So this we want to do. And money-wise, so there are actually not that many parts that need exchange. At some point, the micrometer filter, 0.1 micrometer filter might need exchange. There is, especially for NGOs, a special support for that from the company that manufactures those filters. So it should not result in high costs. And the rest, the sand filter, can be maintained very easily to remove the upper 2 to 3 centimeters of the sand, clean it with water, wash it through, and put it back on to the filter. So this also doesn't come with high costs. It's actually a very economic way, very economic filter system.
Okay, thank you.
We actually have a similar design on our building that we use here for the volunteers. And it needs some maintenance once or twice a year. But other than that, it doesn't require much in terms of replacement of parts. But a very good question with any of these projects, especially if you leave some kind of capital equipment of any kind, to make sure that it gets used and it doesn't just get left there. And then, you know, we need to make sure that we follow up. And that's, I guess, one of the benefits of our project, that we're based here in the community, and we are visiting and staying engaged with these stakeholders over a longer period of time. So we're able to keep up to date and make sure that things are running smoothly. Great question. Okay, and then we've got one question from Adalbert, another one for Daniel by the looks of things.
Yeah, I already read the question. Adi, do you want to read it or shall I just answer it?
It'd be good to have the question.
Yeah, okay, I will read it out if you don't mind. So what is your assessment of the impact of pesticides on water quality? Do you expect the levels to be not critical? Is it possible to connect suitable filters to the current water system? Yeah, so I want to start with our research that we did at the health center in San Juan. So we specifically asked them, do you see any acute diseases that might be related to pesticide use? Because there are certain diseases that can be caused by pesticides if you inhale them, for example, in toxic levels. And they said, no, we have not seen any acute diseases. But there are certain diseases that might be related to chronic effects of pesticides, like very low concentration of pesticides that the people are exposed to over a long period of time. So we have assessed this already in preparation with the charcoal that we implemented into the filter. So by nature, pesticides are very lipophilic substances. What does that mean? They don't dissolve very well in water. They dissolve very well in fats. They also attach very well to carbon. So there is very low levels in the water because of the bad solubility of pesticides. So that's why we are talking about trace amounts. These trace amounts, we expect if they pass through the charcoal filter to get attached to the charcoal and stay there. They don't get washed off because they just don't like the aqueous environment. For these chronic effects of pesticides or potential chronic effects, we have taken care by the charcoal filter. But we first wanted to address the more urgent problem, which is the acute diseases that we see, like diarrhea, gastroenteritis, and all those things that are caused by parasites and bacteria. So that was the first step. Over time, we want to, as I said in my outlook, we want to also have an analytical method in place that screens for different pesticides in the drinking water, so we actually can see what we are dealing with. But that's a matter of the future work.
Thank you, Daniel. And then one final question, which as we're running out of time, I might answer quickly. What role does local government have in providing safe water? Again, a really great question. So in these rural communities, the water supplies are often funded maybe by NGOs, maybe by local government, but then the responsibility is then transferred to the community itself. So the government has no direct responsibility in terms of maintaining, in terms of managing the water supply. So that's what the Junta de Agua, which means a water committee, where you have different representatives from the community taking on different leadership roles, such as the president, the treasurer, the secretary, and the water operator. The water operator is the person who goes round, he takes the measurements of the different at the end of the month so that people can get charged, and it's quite a modest amount which people get charged, and the people who work in the directive to do the administrative work do that on a voluntary basis, and they're elected once every year, once every 2 years. And so in a way it's difficult because you don't have governmental support. In another way, you have more of a sense of autonomy, and certainly for us as a community organization, we're able to work much more effectively directly with the local community without having to go through red tape and bureaucracy that you might find if we were working with governmental institutions. And it allows us to work more dynamically and more on a community level. Is there anything quickly you wanted to add there, Florian? For about a minute, and then we have to wrap up.
Well, no, I think you explained it quite well. Like also the government stakeholder mapping is in the beginning. Like we just viewed some pages of the Prefectura, which said like there's 3 directors concerned with the water system in Atandawa or in the province of Guaranda. Apart from that, yeah, Junta de Agua. See?
And there's good opportunity to collaborate not just with one Junta de Agua, but to bring them all together in more of a coordinated regional approach to try and address these issues. And also, I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but the workshops that we ran on nutrition, that was through the Ministry of Health. So both the health center and their support and the healthcare aspect, and then there's the agency of cleanliness and hygiene. So they're the ones who are actually running these workshops. So while they might not have specific responsibility on the water, we can collaborate with these different agencies in order to implement solutions. Okay, we are out of time. I want to thank everybody for their participation in today and asking some really great questions with many, I think you're probably guys coming away with a sense, certainly I am, of how much more work there is to do. But what these interns have done over the last 12 weeks has left a really strong foundation. So I want to again applaud you guys for all of the hard work and effort in a very complex topic, in a very unique location and context coming from Europe. And there's a lot to do in adapting all of that. So thank you again for all of your hard work, and thanks everybody for your participation. If you're interested in finding out more, you can visit our website, elterrenoecuador.com. And that's it until the next time in the next presentation. Thank you very much.